I look like shit right now, and I don't care. I want to talk about something that's just been bothering me for the past few hours, ever since I read upon this and after watching Josh's video. Before I can get to that, let me talk about a little story. Back in 2003, I want to say 2003. I wasn't pissed with the WWE. I can't really say I was. I was pretty much pissed at the fact that they were the only wrestling company that I could follow. I knew there was more wrestling out there because I heard about Japanese promotions and the Lucha Libre promotions, but at that time I didn't know how to follow them. And one day, I go check the mail, and I get this ad. It's an ad for TNA, Total Nonstop Action. I had never heard of this company at that time. But I'm looking at it, and I noticed it was a wrestling company because there were a couple wrestlers, I can't remember exactly who were on it, but I knew were wrestlers at one time for WWE. I would assume one of them being R-Truth, Ron Killings. And, AJ was plastered all over it, but there were other wrestlers on there at the time. I can't exactly remember who, but I believe Daniels was on it, Michael Shane, Kaz. I could be totally wrong, because we're going back 7 years ago. But I remember AJ and Ron Killings being on the ad. And I wanted to follow this promotion, but to follow this promotion, you had to pay, I want to say $10 to watch their weekly show. Of course, my mom wasn't going to pay for that. $10 a week for a show. I mean, come on. Oh, Jeff Jarrett was on the ad. Of course, how can I forget the one a key name? So, anyhow, I forgot about it. I just said to myself, you know what, screw it. I can't follow this company, at least not right now. About a year later, I get into high school. Yeah, it would be about a year later, because it was September of 2004. I'm going to high school. It's Friday. I get home. It's about 3 or 4 o'clock. I'm turning the channels, and I go to Fox Sport Network, just randomly. And it said Impact Wrestling. It didn't say TNA Impact. It just said Impact Wrestling on the guide. It was TNA, nonetheless. And I started watching this product, and I started saying to myself, you know what? I like this. You want to know, it wasn't just another wrestling company with more wrestlers. It was the fact that it was something different. It wasn't the same stuff we get from WWE, which is all drama-esque. I could only follow the Impacts at the time because that was the gap where I couldn't watch pay-per-views because it was so expensive. The only pay-per-views I'd watch a year was Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, the two ones that I follow the most. So, I started watching Impacts. And eventually, I got around to watching the pay-per-views. And I have to say that TNA had produced some of the best wrestling I had ever seen. At that time, that is. And I felt very good about myself. I thought to myself, this could actually compete. Not right away, but could actually compete. In 2006, I became an even bigger fan because I got an easier access to watch the pay-per-views because John, if you remember him, who's in the videos, used to order every single pay-per-view. And I went to his house to watch them, and TNA especially. And TNA was putting on these fantastic pay-per-views, like left and right, just like popping out. I'll say this. There's 2 guys that got me into the company. The 2 guys that really got me into the company. The one would be AJ Styles. No doubt about it. AJ's the man. The other guy, now most people say they converted to TNA because of Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was the savior. To me, that was Christian. Christian Cage, as he was in TNA. I just like to call him Christian. I'm a big Christian mark. And when I heard he left WWE, I was like, you know what? Good for him. They weren't going to push him. They weren't going to give him the main event status that he truly deserved. So he went off to TNA, and TNA gave him the main event spot. Pretty much, Christian was the perfect example that TNA took and said, you know what, WWE, you screwed up with this guy. This guy could have been a main eventer in your company. Now we're going to make him a main eventer, and we're going to show what he could have been in your company. And they did that. And Christian was just a man. I loved Christian during his TNA run, or in the beginning of his TNA run. I started to love this company. Even so, when I came on here on YouTube, I was doing the game reviews, and when I realized I sucked at those, I decided, you know what, let me go into something that I actually watch more. Because while I do play a lot of video games, I'm not really, at the time, I wasn't well informed on what makes a good game. Whereas wrestling, I at least knew some of the basics, like, not like the complete inside, but at that time, I at least knew WWE and TNA. Those were the only two promotions I watched when I first came on here in late 06. And I supported TNA. I was like Bill and Doug. I was like Kent Jones. I was like Oliver Scott. I was like anybody who came on here and said that TNA was better than WWE. Because at that time, I thought TNA was better than WWE. Because in 2006, I thought WWE was horrible. They were showing bad pay-per-views left and right. The fact that Carlito turned face was, it wasn't totally bad because they were still pushing him, but I thought that was a bad move, and that's pretty much what hurt Carlito's career, in my opinion. The Cena run was getting out of control. The Shawn Michaels and God storyline just really pissed me off. So TNA was my company that I loved. Now, many people will say in late 06, that's when the change started to happen. I don't think that, because when Kurt Angle came in, I still liked the company. His matches with Joe were really fantastic. But then came March of 07, when they put out Destination X. And it was a bad pay-per-view. I thought, you know what? It's one pay-per-view. Everyone's going to have a bad pay-per-view now and then. Especially WWE, where they were pulling out shit pay-per-views, and especially December to December, I was just fed up with WWE. At that point, I was a big TNA mark. And then came Lockdown 07, which in my opinion, I love Lockdown 07. I don't know about anybody else, but that was one of my favorite pay-per-views that year from TNA. Even WWE, that is. I love that pay-per-view, so it brought me like the instinct that yes, TNA still has it. And then came Sacrifice, Slammiversary, Victory Road, and Hard Justice. That's when I started to notice the downfall. That's when I started to notice that this company is taking a wrong turn for the bad. I was getting pissed off with the company before that, but that was mostly because of Bill and Doug, who kept trying to hype it as this great and wonderful company. And that's kind of what got me angry with the company. And that's not TNA's fault necessarily. It's more Bill and Doug's fault. Although they've changed their ways, which is a good thing. But once Hard Justice 07 happened, I was like, what happened? What happened to this company that I used to love? Because then came No Surrender, which was just okay. Bound for Glory, which was, I guess, good. And pay-per-view after that, what was the pay-per-view after that? Genesis was, if I remember correctly, okay to shit. The Impact started to get bad. The pay-per-view started to get really bad. And things just weren't making sense, and they were pushing the wrong people. AJ's my favorite wrestler, and granted, he's the one getting pushed, but I also like the Motor City Machine Guns, who constantly get punished for whatever reason, although now they're the TNA Tag Team Champions, which, by the way, that was 2 years too late. 2 fucking years too late. People talk about how, they took too long for Tyler Black to win the title. They took way too long for the fucking Motor City Machine Guns to finally win the tag titles. But just this company was just pushing the wrong guys. They were doing things that just confused the hell out of me. And I was losing faith. And Lockdown 08 really made me lose my faith for this company. I lost complete faith in the company. I would watch Impact now and then. I watched Victory Road 08, which wasn't too bad. I would watch pay-per-views every now and then. I watched, as far as '09 goes, I watched the Lockdown '09, which was pretty good. I liked Lockdown '09. I thought it was good. I watched a couple of pay-per-views after that, but they were just bleh. And just went right back to the same usual bullshit that TNA pulls. They did pull a good Turning Point. I liked Turning Point '09. I surprisingly did not see Final Resolution, which I hear was still good. And then that's when Hogan. Well, no, Hogan was signed, I think, before that, when they announced that they signed Hogan. And I just, like, in awe. Like, why? Why would you sign Hogan? What is he going to do for your company? I mean, I would talk to Paul, who you know better as Undertaker010. He says he's going to bring in ratings for the company because he's this big name. I didn't think that. I mean, I admitted he was a big name, but I don't think he's as big of a draw now that he was 15 years ago. Because since coming back, the ratings have been the same when they've been on Thursday. The pay-per-view buy rates have dropped completely down, which is why I'm making this video. I did watch the January 4th Impact, and I thought the Impact was mediocre. It was bad. And then I kind of tuned into a couple more Impacts, and that was it. I just couldn't watch this company anymore. And then the stupidity in Dixie Carter, when she made that speech to all those people saying, I still expect you to support me even if you don't agree with me. And then her fucking YouTube where she pretty much says that if I hear another Fire Russo chant, I'm going to fire somebody else. And then I'm starting to hear that their last two pay-per-views were under 10,000 buys, according to Meltzer and Alvarez, or Wrestling Observer, which I'm subscribed to, by the way. And I'm thinking to myself, what happened? 5 years ago, this was a company I thought that was going to compete with the WWE. I thought they were going to go out there, put on these great pay-per-views, one after another, after another, after another. And they were going to do great. They were going to do fantastic. And then they just went complete 180. They literally did. They went from having these amazing pay-per-views to having whatever pay-per-views. Because besides Turning Point and Final Resolution from '09, what amazing pay-per-view have they put on? Really? When was the last amazing pay-per-view they put on? That's my point. And the product is not growing, especially since they're signing old guys. They're not pushing any of the talent that we want to be pushed. I mean, Desmond Wolfe, he got buried within 3 minutes when we voted for him to go for the world title. He got squashed in 3 minutes to RVD. TNA, the problem with TNA is they don't listen to the fans. That's number one. Number two, they think they know what they're doing. Dixie Carter is a dumb twit. I'm sorry, she's a dumb twit. I've heard she's a nice person. I'm not going to judge her on a person, but she is a dumb twit because she still has Vince Russo there. And if Vince Russo's booking these bad shows, then she should know. And she's hiring pretty much everybody that was a part of the downfall of WCW. And the only good thing that comes out of this is I've found other wrestling companies out there that can go ahead and entertain what I like in Ring of Honor and in Shikara. There's some Japanese promotions out there. Like I've got a bunch of disc sets of best ofs, which are very good. But TNA was the company I thought was going to prosper, and they haven't prospered. They keep getting 1.0s. They went up against Raw on Monday nights and always got a 0.6. And they had to pull out and fucking had their freaking dick between their legs and fucking had to go and run away. The game, which I had hyped for 2 years, because I remember hearing about it in late 06, I'm like, not only is there another wrestling promotion out there that I can watch, there's going to be another wrestling game out there that I can have fun with. I don't have to just play WWE games. There's another wrestling game out there. And 2 years later, that's what we got. And that game didn't help Midway. Midway went out of business. Or, I don't know if they went out of business. They filed for bankruptcy. You know, TNA is a lost cause. That's what it is. Because every time they try to hire somebody to boost up the ratings, it fails miserably. The ratings don't go up. The buy rates don't go up. And you know what? Maybe they should start realizing, hey, we're bringing all these big names and nothing's happening. We brought in probably the biggest name in wrestling history. I mean, the only other name we can get out there that's as big as Hogan is Austin. And Austin's not going to sign with that company. Now, one more thing I want to touch on before I end this video, it's probably long as shit, is Paul Heyman. Will I tune in if Paul Heyman is with the company? I will tune in if he is a writer. If he is much like Jim Cornette, where he's just an on-screen character, no, I'm not going to do it. And even if Paul Heyman is a writer, but he has to write with Vince Russo and other guys, I'm still not going to watch. Because then Paul Heyman's going to have to deal with that bullshit. Because Paul Heyman wrote ECW, but he always, or the new ECW for a little while before he got knocked off of that position. And his ideas always kept getting shot down. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen if Paul Heyman signs with this company. So, if Paul Heyman does come in and he's the sole writer and he takes over the writing, I'll try and watch, see where they go. And if Paul Heyman could turn it around, then I will go on camera and bow down to Paul Heyman for taking a company that I once thought was going to be this prospering company, a company I once loved, and turn it back into the company I loved back in 2005. I'll bow down to him. But if he doesn't, or if this company doesn't turn around, I just don't really care. If they go out of business, I'm not going to care. I will be a little bit distraught that this company didn't get to prosper, didn't get to become the company I thought it would be. And that's sad. TNA is a sad, lost cause. And there's so many reasons as to why, but why even go ahead and blame them? Because we can sit here and blame them all we want. They're not going to change. I've done this for 3 years or 2 years. I ranted on TNA because I loved TNA at one time. I went all over TNA because I loved them so much. And I wanted them to go back. And they just showed no signs of going back. So what can you do? Anyways, I've ranted on long enough. And TNA, it's been a long road, but I haven't watched the show in months, and I don't plan to at all. And I don't plan to buy any pay-per-views from you anytime soon. Especially after that Jenna Moroska shit. Thank you very much. So with that, I bid you all adieu. See you in my next video.